It has been very evident after the first 2 weeks of this Packers season that they do have one of the best defenses in the NFL. And there's no doubt that the Micah Parsons trade is a trade that really took this defense over the top. But I want to look into how Brian Gutekunst created this defense. And two of the biggest factors in the talent the Packers have here has to do with the trades of Davante Adams and Aaron Rodgers. And even though those were a couple of years in the past, what the Packers got in return for those two players has drastically shifted the unit we see out there today. And if these trades didn't take place, there's a very good chance this defense would not be what we see today. First off, looking at the Davante trade, they trade him for a first-round pick and a second-round pick. Those players turn into Quay Walker in the first round, and then the Packers package the second-round draft pick they got from the Raiders with their other second-round pick, move up for Christian Watson. Now, he's injured right now, so that's not a massive impact at the current time. But Quay Walker, a very crucial piece on this Packers defense. He's played really well in the first 2 weeks. Then if we look at the Aaron Rodgers trade, this is where things get really interesting. So here's what the Packers received in this trade from the Jets. Here are the players they drafted with the picks they ended up getting from the Jets. They got Lucas Van Ness. Now, that was sort of a pick swap from 15, so I guess there's still a chance they could have gotten Van Ness staying at 15, potentially. But you have Van Ness, Luke Musgrave, Anders Carlson, Edgerrin Cooper, Jacob Monk, and Evan Williams. Now, I think the biggest pieces there are Van Ness, Edgerrin Cooper, and Evan Williams. And I think specifically with Edgerrin Cooper, the Packers there traded from pick number 41 back to 45. And in doing so, they got two later draft picks, which they were able to use to get Jacob Monk and Evan Williams. Now, the Evan Williams pick, it wasn't directly from trading back for Cooper. They packaged that one of the extra picks they got and combined that with their 126 pick, which they already had before the Rodgers trade, and then moved up to pick 111 to pick Evan Williams. And so, still regardless, they needed that other pick from trading back from Edgerrin Cooper, that pick which they got from the Jets, to get Evan Williams. And so, the main point here is that without the Aaron Rodgers trade, you may not have Van Ness, and you wouldn't have Edgerrin Cooper and Evan Williams, two players who are very impactful on this Packers defense. And we have seen Edgerrin Cooper play in these first two games, and he has looked like one of the best linebackers in the NFL. His ability to rush the quarterback, second to none when it comes to linebackers and a lot of other players as well. And then also his ability against the run, filling those run lanes, his speed. He's so physical. The Packers defense would not look like they do today if it weren't for Edgerrin Cooper. And the Packers would not have had Edgerrin Cooper if it weren't for trading away Aaron Rodgers. So four of the key Packers defensive players, Quay Walker, Van Ness, Edgerrin Cooper, and Evan Williams, are all byproducts of Brian Gutekunst making the decision to trade away Rodgers, where at the time, I think that things were starting to get a little bit complicated between Rodgers and the Packers. It looked like Gutekunst drafting Jordan Love. At some point, when you're a GM and you use your first-round pick on a quarterback, odds are you're not just going to allow them to stay on the bench forever. And so it made sense when the Packers decided to part ways with Aaron Rodgers. But still, I think that took a lot of boldness. I mean, to trade away Davante and to trade away Aaron Rodgers. Now, with Davante, it seemed like the Packers wanted him to stay. It seemed like he was ready to leave. But regardless, I think that what Brian Gutekunst was able to get in return, it's clearly a very large factor and reason the Packers are successful today. And I think that, sometimes when it comes to GMs, they make moves at the time that by large parts of certain fan bases are looked down upon. And I think one of those was drafting Jordan Love. And if the Packers wouldn't have drafted Jordan Love, no doubt the Packers would not be where they are today as well. And so I think Brian Gutekunst has done a really good job of building this roster, and I think the final piece which really brought everything together was the addition of Micah Parsons. And so one interesting thing too about these trades, the reason the Packers are able to pay Micah Parsons, the $46.5 million that he's going to be getting per year, is because they have so much young talent, and that's another factor of the Aaron Rodgers trade, Davante Adams trade. A lot of those players are still on their rookie deals, and because these players are on their rookie contracts, those guys aren't taking up a ton of money. You're not paying Edgerrin Cooper a ton of money, Evan Williams, Van Ness, Quay Walker's on the final year of his rookie deal. And so because you're getting top-tier production out of lots of those players on rookie contracts, you're able to take that where lots of those guys are very cheap, and because you're not having to spend money at all those positions, you're able to take a huge portion of that money and invest it into a player like Micah Parsons. And so I think what Brian Gutekunst and the entire Packers front office has been able to do for the past few seasons has put the Packers in a perfect position. And then when you have Jerry Jones and Micah Parsons having their disagreements about the contract, and then you have the Cowboys actually willing to move on from Micah Parsons, the Packers were in a perfect position. And the fact that they still had their draft capital, still had those, first round picks, it was a perfect moment for Brian Gutekunst to take that kind of risk. And I think that he knew it was the time for the Packers to make a massive splash move, just because it felt like the Packers had a lot of talent, or have a lot of talent at lots of these other positions. And so because you still have some of that money around, because you have a ton of young players on rookie deals because of these trades, you're able to bring a guy like Micah Parsons in. And so while this defense is looking really good right now, the reason they look so good and the reason that they have so much talent and so much depth is because of the Packers' willingness to trade away their top-tier elite veterans, which I think can be hard for teams to do at times. And I think there are moments in Green Bay where the Packers do move on from veteran players maybe earlier than lots of people had hoped. One example being Aaron Jones last season. They instead bring in Josh Jacobs, and I think overall that ended up turning out well, even though it was sad to see Aaron Jones go. And I think it's good to have someone at the GM position in Brian Gutekunst, who clearly is not too emotionally tied to things here. I really do believe that his goal is to win a Super Bowl in Green Bay. I think that's every GM's goal. But he's done a very, very good job in the entire Packers front office, scouting department, at building a team that is ready to go and win a Super Bowl. And so when you add Micah Parsons into the mix with all these other players, it's just the perfect scenario and the perfect moment for all these things to come together. And so it's good to be sitting here at 2-0 for the Packers, and it's going to be exciting to see where this team goes the rest of the year. And I predicted 13-4 after the Micah Parsons trade. And honestly, after watching these first two games, part of me thinks to myself, is that a prediction that's honestly too conservative? Because these were two of the best offenses in the NFL last season, and the Packers defense shut them down. And so I think it's very promising for what the Packers are going to be able to do this season. And now I have a lot of confidence come playoff time that because of how good this defense is, the Packers are going to be able to compete against some of the best teams in the NFL, as we've already seen in these first 2 weeks. But if you'd like more Packers content, feel free to turn on the post notifications down below. If you want to follow me on Twitter, you can follow me at LukeBeller3 for more Packers content. But thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.